So today I'm making two of the strangest sounding cakes I think I've ever heard of. Strangest or intriguing? Strangest. Yeah, I'm just not gonna give up without a fight. Hello everyone, welcome back to my and your kitchen, if you'd like it to be. It's great to have you here for another installment of Jamie and Chef, and today I'm in James Beard's American Cookery cookbook. So James Beard, who is he? I mostly know about him because there's this big award named after him. It's a big deal in the food culinary world. James Beard award-winning so-and-so, antichef. No, I'm kidding. So this past summer when I was reading Julia Child's autobiography, My Life in France, she name drops the hell out of James Beard in this book. So they were buddies. It's the only reason why I brought that book over. Anyway, in the beginning there was Beard, Julia Child. So we're gonna call him here today an American culinary expert, specializing in American cookery. That's why the book is called American Cookery. It's a good name for a book. And I just picked this up. Look how thick it is. And I'm not even joking here. The very first time opening up the book, I turned to this. My eyes went to here. Tomato soup cake. That's the very first thing I saw when I opened up this book. No foreplay or anything. It's just like, oh, wow. I'm making that. Because what is that? Tomato soup cake or mystery. Originally this was made as a winter cake with canned tomatoes, then condensed soup came into being and the recipe was changed. That's all I know about this cake. That's all I want to know about it until I make it. It's going to be a really short video if that was the only cake I was going to make, because the recipe isn't huge. So I'm like, okay, well, should I TikTok it? No. Just flip the page and then you got mayonnaise cake. Mayonnaise. This has had great popularity from time to time, mainly because it sounds daring. Yeah, I'd say. I must make this mayo cake also. So I'm 2 pages into this book and I haven't even touched on the pork cake yet. Save that for another day. I got 2 other cakes on the brain. Let's get to work. We're gonna start off with the mystery. The tomato soup cake. Bowl me. Thank you so much. Just mix together the dry ingredients first, like a good little baker. I have prepped everything in advance, yes. Sift together the dry ingredients. Thank you. 2 cups of all-purpose flour. I sift that into my bowl. A teaspoon of cinnamon. Let's sift it in. Teaspoon of freshly grated nutmeg. Teaspoon of baking soda. And a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, but I already know that's not gonna sift, so just get that in there. Give that a good whisk. Prepared. Let me go fetch a friend. Of course, I'm talking about the Silver Fox. Silver Fox beater on there, and this time I'm using one that has a bit of a squeegee on it. New purchase. That way it's taking care of the butter that's inevitably gonna stick to the sides. So in the Fox here, I'm gonna add in a 1/4 cup or half a stick of butter. Get creaming. Oh yeah. Hello. Get creaming. So on a low speed, I'm gonna slowly add in a cup of sugar. Cream those together. Let's get you off to the side for a second. Thank you. So this is a cup of raisins. And then I have a cup of toasted chopped walnuts. Do that. Sweet. I'm gonna sprinkle just a little bit of the dry mixture onto this. Okay, so that's how. So once you've sprinkled that together there, great sprinkling. We can bring the Silver Fox back over here. Low speed. All right, this next part is a bit of a choose your own adventure sort of thing. James Beard has given me the option. He says you can beat in 1 to 2 eggs after the butter and the sugar if you want. It's gonna give you a richer cake if you do so, but also if you don't want the richer cake, you don't need to do it. I have 2 smaller eggs, 1 to 2 eggs. I think I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do 1 egg. Why don't we just split the difference? Just 1 egg. Rich cake, but not fully rich. Great, so this is when things get interesting. Arm yourself with a can of condensed tomato soup. Yeah. Oh yeah, crack that sucker open. This is going in the cake, right? Today's episode is sponsored by Nature's Sweet and Nature's Sweet tomatoes. Cherubs. Still, did you know that October is Fair Trade Month and all of Nature's Sweet tomatoes are Fair Trade certified? They're one of the strongest fair trade programs around. This is actually a big deal when it comes to your food, and that's what you want to look out for on the packaging when you're picking up something like tomatoes. Because if you don't know, fair trade covers a lot of ground here, such as safer working conditions, environmental protection, sustainability, community development, and Nature's Sweet celebrates the workers that they help who make their tomatoes oh so sweet. So as I continue my cooking journey, I try to be careful with the ingredients I'm using, that they're coming from an ethical, sustainable place. I mean, as often as I can, because it's really easy to not know where your food is coming from. So I reach more for food that I know is grown and raised the right way, like these sweet little, cute little cherubs. Of course, fair trade is something to consider year-round, but October is the month to celebrate by trying some of Nature's Sweet's cherubs. And you can learn all about the practices down below, or scan the code right here. Thank you kindly, Nature's Sweet. Add some of the tomato soup to start. Okay, so some of it goes in. I got a teaspoon of grated lemon zest here. I'm gonna add some of that in now. Start mixing. So add more tomato soup. There you go. Add more lemon rind. More tomato soup. James Beard wants me to alternate between the lemon rind, the tomato soup, and the dry ingredients. But I figure add the soup and the rind first, get that incorporated, then I'll work on this. It's my professional opinion. I think that's good. A little at a time, adding the dry ingredients. A little more. So the deal with this is you cannot over mix the flour just until it's incorporated. So I'm keeping an eye on it. It's on a low speed, right? Yes, it is on a low speed. I think it's cool to add the rest of it. I think you can stop. You don't want to overdo it, champ. Okay, so Silver Fox, you've been immensely helpful. I'll take it from here. At this point in time, I usually give the cake a taste, but I'm gonna keep the surprise going for as long as I can. Okay, so we gotta fold in the nuts and the raisins. That's a lot. That's what he says. Okay, so this is the only part of the recipe that I haven't planned in advance because I wanted to see what the cake batter looked like first, because he tells me, use a loaf pan for this cake. But I'm thinking at the end of this whole experiment with the mayonnaise cake and the tomato soup cake, it'd be nice if they were both kind of looking like cakes, you know, like in this kind of thing, or this. So I wanted to determine how much of the batter I had and make that decision. Tomato soup cake turn into a loaf pan. These are the decisions I gotta make. I don't want it in a loaf pan. So I'm gonna go with this. Final answer. Baker's Joy. So get that terrible looking circle into your pan. It's a thicker batter. Maybe I should have put it in a loaf pan, but I didn't. Maybe it should go into the loaf pan. What should you do, you little punk? After much deliberation, I have decided to go to the loaf pan. That's just what I'm feeling right now in the moment, and I gotta trust my gut. I didn't put any parchment paper in this, but I am using the Baker's Joy, and I have faith in this product. Not an ad. The oven's been preheated to 350 degrees F, and I gotta get this in there for about an hour, although that never really works out for me, so I'm gonna be keeping a close eye on it. It might be less, especially if this thing starts looking a bit toasty in there. So I just gotta make sure that the center springs back, confirmed, I think. So 3 minutes short of an hour. Let this cool on the rack for 10 minutes, just like so. Shoot. Yes, Jamie. Looking at it just visually now that I can see it, I'm like, okay, that's a loaf pan kind of cake. Good call. So I'm gonna let that cool. I'm gonna clean this out, and I'm gonna make the next cake. So I got an order over here for a cake with mayonnaise. You order that? 2 bowls. Sieve also, please. Yes. Firstly, I have a cup of chopped dates. You could have gone with raisins or dates, but I did raisins with the other cake. So dates. With the dates, I need a cup of boiling water. Sprinkle in a teaspoon of baking soda. So in with the dates, I'm gonna pour in a cup of boiling water. Set that aside to cool. I got 2 cups of all-purpose flour, and I'm gonna do the same thing I did last time, sieve it. Also gonna sprinkle in a teaspoon of cocoa powder. Get that through the sieve as well. And then I need a half a teaspoon of salt, but this salt isn't fine enough for the sieve. All right, whisk that all together. Yeah, another bowl, me, please. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, the big one. Here's the mayonnaise, and the very interesting thing about this cake is that there is no butter in it. And the way I'm reading the recipe and the way things are ordered and how I'm interpreting it, it's coming across to me like the mayonnaise acts as the butter, just with like how I'm about to add everything here. So don't quote me on that. I don't know. I'm not an expert on mayonnaise cakes, but that's what I'm picking up, at least like up here. So, okay. So I'm gonna add in, I'm gonna add in 3/4 cup of mayonnaise into the bowl. Next up goes a cup of sugar. So it says to mix the mayo and the sugar. I'm not gonna use the silver fox, but I am gonna get some other useful tool. So grandma's come to town. I gotta mix this very well. Okay, I think that's sufficiently mixed. Eeh. Chuck, help me out here. It's deceiving because you would never think that that's mayonnaise, but okay, so things are getting kind of funky over here because I do have the dry mix and I have my dates in water that has cooled. The funky part is it says the cooled fruit mixture, which is the dates in the water. That's a mixture. So I'm supposed to add the water in. The mixture would be including the water. Okay, I will do that. Little bit of the dry mixture to start. Add alternating with the fruit mixture. Okay, so I will add some of the fruit mixture, which is gonna include the water because that's what a mixture would be. A little more flour. I guess that would make sense because this thing would get really dry if it was just the flour. Okay, more of the fruit mix. Right, I guess the fruit mixture makes sense because I did add that teaspoon of baking soda in here. Is the mayo cake gonna be superior to the tomato soup cake or vice versa? I'm not taste testing this one either, so I'm gonna reserve all my judgments till the very end. So new terminology alert over here. He says 1 cup of broken nut meats. So I had to look online what the hell that means. And nut meats are, well, it's exactly what it sounds like, the meat of a nut. So I need broken nut meats. So I just took a cup of pecans, whatever you want to call them, don't care. And I just roughly chop them up. I think that's broken nut meats in my head. There's a 1 cup worth. And then I have a teaspoon of vanilla extract. In it goes. There's our cake batter. What do you think, Chuck? Too early to tell. I agree. Okay, loaf pan has been cleaned out, ready for the next cake. Where's my baker's joy? Love this stuff. This thing is gonna go into the oven naked again. Sans parchment paper. Turn into the loaf pan. No butter, no eggs. Okay. I have no idea what's supposed to happen with this cake. Is it gonna rise? I don't know. No, I legitimately don't know. It has baking soda in the date water, but that was about it. Oven's been preheated 350 degrees F, and I gotta bake this for 50 minutes. Cross your fingers. And your toes. Good luck. Actually smells pretty good. So I'm gonna be looking for the same thing I did with the other cake. I gotta lightly press the center and it should spring back. Okay, I think so. Both cakes have now cooled down completely. Something about the mayonnaise cake I need to tell you about. I guess it's just sinking in the middle there. He recommended 50 minutes. I took it out at 47 minutes, so it was probably that, but I tried to put it back in the oven when I noticed that, and a little rescue op, but it was too late. So it's fine. With the tomato soup cake, he does have frosting recommendations. We'll get into that shortly. With the Mayo Cake, he says you could use frosting, there's recommendations, or you could just eat it au naturel. But because I need to disguise what's going on the top, because of that canoe, I'm gonna make some frosting. So, all right, this is what he's suggesting for the tomato soup cake. Plain or chocolate cream cheese icing, or plain browned butter, or spiced butter icing. I've decided to go with the plain cream cheese icing. However, there's no recipe for that in this cookbook, so I had to go to the archives. Another cookbook. I found a cream cheese frosting recipe in this cookbook right here. It's the Fanny Farmer cookbook. I covered her last year. Cream cheese frosting. Bowl me. Thank you. In goes 8. This is gonna make a lot. Do you want to really commit to this much? You probably only need half. Okay, I've decided to half this recipe because that is going to make a hell of a lot. So instead of 8 ounces of cream cheese, now I'm going with 4 ounces. 1 cup of confectioner's sugar. And now I only need 2 tablespoons of butter and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Combine it all together and vroom vroom. Vroom vroom? Ah! Okay, until that is perfectly smooth and spreadable. Eject the tomato soup. So with my cream cheese icing here, very rustically, why don't you spread this all over the top? All right, so there's that. For the Mayo Cake, this cake is not usually frosted, but it's sometimes topped with a prune or pineapple butter frosting. Prune or pineapple butter frosting. Again, there is no recipe for that in this cookbook, so I was like, what the heck is that? So I found fragments of the recipe for pineapple butter frosting in this cookbook, again, Fanny Farms butter frosting, but it has no mention of pineapple. But if I look to the internet, I found someone that has a similar cookbook to this, and it does have a pineapple butter frosting. It is the exact same recipe as this right here, it just has a mention of pineapple. So butter frosting with pineapple. So you're gonna need a can of crushed pineapple. Well, you're not gonna need this because you might not make it, but I need it. All right. Scoop out around 1/4 cup worth and drain it as much as I can. Right. 4 tablespoons of butter. Granny mixer, vroom vroom. Butter's looking creamy. I'm gonna add in an egg yolk. I have a cup of confectioner's sugar. I'm gonna add in 2 tablespoons at a time. Okay, that looks as it should. Now I'm gonna add in a 1/4 cup of the pineapple. It says vanilla is optional with this thing, but I figure if I just a, you know. All right, with this mayo cake, let's first start with that divot. I was running out of the pineapple butter frosting, so I just whipped up some more. That's better. So I got the frosting on the top. I don't think it was necessary to put on the sides because I have a vision, kind of. Tomato soup cake, the mayonnaise cake. Hold up! Tomato soup cake. Mayonnaise cake. So the tale of 2 slices of cake here. The tomato soup cake looks like it may be a minute or 2 overbaked. The mayonnaise cake may be a minute or 2 underbaked. Talk to me, tomato soup cake, talk to me. Okay, I think it'd be a good idea to try the cake without the frosting too. That's tomato soup cake. I will discuss in a moment. Cleanse your palate. All right, mayonnaise cake, talk to me. So let's start off with the tomato soup cake here. First of all, it was a tad overbaked. Would have benefited from a few less minutes in the oven. Whoops. And what I was picking up was like a subtle pumpkin spice kind of thing. Perfect for the fall, an aptly timed bake-off. But yeah, it's like kind of like a pumpkin pie filling a little bit, but toned down. And obviously no pumpkin, but the tomato soup was giving off a vibe of that of sorts. But like the tomato soup flavor is not like super prominent, but when I was picking it up, it did have like a pumpkin vibe to it. I don't know if that even makes sense. That's what I was getting. Could have also just turned down the nuts and the raisins a little bit. Although that being said, because the cake was a tad overbaked, they did help bring a little something extra to this thing. The highlight of this cake, and I can't imagine it without it, is the cream cheese frosting. That thing is perfect. When I was getting to the bottom of the slice there, and I was like, oh, I wish I had more frosting. I would think that the tomato soup cake would be even better if it was baked for the same amount of time in the oven as the mayonnaise cake, which that was 47 minutes. This wasn't 57 minutes. I would, how about 50 minutes? Then maybe we have something here. Anyway, tomato soup cake. Mayonnaise cake. So this one surprised the hell out of me. This mayo cake, mayonnaise cake, it's a funny name for a cake, but it all makes sense to me now. I'm like, oh, right, because I was wondering where the butter and the eggs were in the cake, and it was in here the whole time. Well, what the fat was, because mayonnaise, oil, and egg yolk. And what it does is makes the texture of this cake so moist. Very moist, moisty moist, sorry, but it's true. Every bite I was savoring with this thing, I found that the flavor was even more intense too. It brought like a little more, like a tanginess to it too, in like a really good way. It was a tad underbaked, as I said, but I thought that was a good thing. I enjoyed the underbaked parts of this cake immensely moist, more so than an overbaked cake. Prefer the underbaked. I found that both cakes had a little too much in the nuts and raisins date category. But that being said, I prefer the pecans/pecans and the dates in this one over the walnuts and the raisins in the tomato soup cake. So that's a bonus. And the pineapple butter frosting. Wouldn't a chocolate cake with mayonnaise be really good? Chocolate mayonnaise cake? Maybe one day I'll figure that out. This was Jamie and James. Bon appetit, au revoir, see you later, peace. I'm just not gonna give up without a fight.